Cenk started off very rightly talking about how Republicans and Donald Trump seem unhinged by perpetuating these ideas that dogs and cats are being eaten and that women are having post-birth abortions. And the first thing that Michael does when he comes on here is perpetuate these exact claims. Look, you guys can do this until you're blue in the face.
With evidence.
I don't know how to convey the extent to which when Republicans say this kind of stuff, it does not resonate with normal people. And you seem crazy. And Donald Trump went out there on stage, got laughed at by the entire nation. And then, Michael, you come on here and you do the exact same thing.
In this video, this MAGA panel tries exposing Tyler Cohen. And it backfires hard. We're looking at a debate that technically happened before the election, but wasn't just some throwaway campaign panel. It's a perfect snapshot of the right-wing playbook heading into any election year. You've got Tyler Cohen taking the gloves off on Piers Morgan's show, calling out the same fear-mongering garbage we still hear today. Migrants eating pets, women committing post-birth abortions, all that nonsense. And Brian doesn't let it slide. He leans in and practically dares them to run with it. Basically, the more they repeat that unhinged junk, the more normal people tune it out and just see how extreme the GOP has become. And what makes it even more relevant now is that this isn't just Trump going off the rails, it's the entire MAGA machine, from Tomi Lahren to Knowles, all choosing to echo the same delusions in lockstep. So make sure to watch till the end to see how this MAGA panel tries exposing Tyler Cohen, but backfires hard.
So please, triple down on this, quadruple down on this, make this election a referendum on this bogus notion that women are executing their babies after they're born. I beg of you, we'll see how that works out.
Okay.
Here's the thing. It would be one thing if Trump had a dismal debate and the right-wing ecosystem lamented it, nursed their bruised egos, and moved on. But because they traffic in the same pool of denialism as Trump, because they can never admit fault like Trump, because they are as deluded as Trump, what we are left with was not only a disastrous debate performance, but also proof that the rest of the right is just as bad as he is. I mean, honestly, the last thing that I would want to do if my candidate turned in a performance like Trump's is to align myself closer with him by repeating the same utter bullshit that he spewed on that debate stage. No matter how hard these right-wingers like Michael Knowles and Tomi Lahren try, no, you do not sound normal when you claim that migrants are eating pets. No, you don't sound normal when you claim that women are executing their babies after they're born. No, you don't sound normal when you brag about the world's dictators or can't offer anything beyond the concept of a plan, or, of course, lose your skull because someone spoke an ill word of the Holy Grail, your crowd size. It's bad enough that your candidate does it. The fact that the rest of these sycophants and mouthpieces voluntarily opt to do the same is a testament to the rot that has pervaded the entirety of the GOP. So look, I'm not here to tell Republicans to stop spewing this stuff. It's the opposite. I will gladly broadcast every time they do it. I will gladly help them spread the message that they want to spread, because while that stuff might appeal to the farthest fringes of their base, it really doesn't appeal to normal people. It makes them look creepy and unhinged and extreme. And if that's the message they want to send fewer than 2 months out from the election, far be it from me to stand in their way. Here's another moment from Piers' panel. I think what's so interesting is that Tomi brought up this idea that the onus was on Kamala Harris to present some vision for the future. And if we think about this election, as far as Trump is concerned, is entirely predicated on seeking vengeance for what happened on January 6th. He wants to release the January 6th insurrectionists who've been prosecuted, who've been indicted and charged. He is solely focused on getting retribution for those people, for what happened on January 6th. He was asked in this debate whether he would sign a nationwide abortion ban multiple times, refused to answer it. You want to talk about a vision for the future? He won't talk about what he's offering for the future. He's solely focused on relitigating events of the past.
Brian's takedown here is just brutal, in the best way. Like, he's not just calling out one ridiculous claim, he's calling out the entire MAGA framework that keeps recycling this trash. He just straight up begs them to make the election a referendum on the idea that women are out here executing babies post-birth, because it's that absurd, and he knows it. Brian's whole point is that Republicans are so deep in this fantasy bubble that they can't even recognize how off the wall they sound to normal people anymore. And what really lands is how he ties it all back to Trump's failure on the debate stage. Like, it'd be one thing if the GOP acknowledged the disaster and moved on. But nah, they doubled down. Michael Knowles always jumps in like Trump's hype man, parroting the same deranged lies. And Brian just cuts through it all with that calm but fed up delivery. He's basically saying if you really think telling voters that migrants are eating pets and women are taking out babies is your big play, good luck with that. You're not just out of touch, you just sound unhinged.
Ah, yes, the responsibility lies solely with Kamala Harris to offer a vision for the future, because that's what Republicans are concerned about, the future. The Make America Great Again party. All the while, their standard bearer is singing the J6 national anthem and promising to release the insurrectionists from prison and continuing to perpetuate the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen. But sure, these are the people for whom a forward-looking agenda is very high on the priority list. Got it. Consider, too, Kamala does talk about a vision for the future. She does talk about how she'll sign a bill codifying Roe into law when she's president. She does talk about how she'll sign the bill securing the border that Trump killed to preserve the border as a campaign issue into law when she's president. She does talk about how she'll create an opportunity economy by giving a $50,000 tax deduction for small businesses, how she'll enable young people to build wealth by offering first-time homebuyers a $25,000 grant for down payments on a home. You want to talk about plans? Her entire campaign is grounded in them. Meanwhile, Trump has been asked 12 separate times for his plan on childcare, and here's the word salad that he offered up.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you.
If anyone could tell me what the fuck those words mean, I'm all ears. But until then, perhaps the Republicans should spare us the grandstanding about how important it is that their candidates present a clear and convincing vision for the future when their candidate is Donald Trump.
Brian's response here is just ruthless, and honestly, it's earned. He starts by mocking the idea that Republicans, of all people, care about having a vision of the future, care about having a vision for the future. Like, yeah, this is the same party still clinging to the election lies, still romanticizing the January 6th insurrection, and still turning their rallies into weird grievance pageants. But sure, they're the ones demanding forward-thinking leadership. Brian torches that entire premise with just pure sarcasm. And it lands hard because it's true. These people are out here treating Kamala Harris like she has an outlined policy, when in reality, she's been pushing out concrete stuff. Border deals, Roe protection, small biz support, wealth building for young people, actual policy. And then finally, Brian flips the contrast, and it's just devastating. Trump's been asked 12 separate times for a child care plan. His answer? A rambling, borderline incoherent stream of buzzwords and tangents that feel like AI gone wrong. He brings up Rubio, Ivanka, tariffs, foreign nations, everything except childcare. And when Brian cuts in with a deadpan, if anyone could tell me what those words mean. Yeah, no notes. It's exactly what the moment deserved.
Here's one last moment from Piers. I've sat here listening to Dan, to Michael. I believe Tomi made the same point about how Donald Trump has to fire his advisors. When he comes back for the second debate, he can't listen to these people who've steered him wrong. Does anybody actually think that Donald Trump took the advice of any of his advisors? Does he think that he's disciplined enough to take any advice and not just revert back to exactly who he is, exactly the guy that we've seen for the past nearly a decade? The second he's poked, he is so easy to bait that you could dangle a cookie in front of a 4-year-old and they would have more discipline than Donald Trump. This notion that his advisors are responsible for what happened on that debate stage is a joke. It's also, you look at someone like Ronna McDaniel, for example. She was fired as RNC chair because Donald Trump always needs to blame somebody for his own shortcomings. The reason that Republicans lost was not because of Ronna McDaniel or the RNC. It's because people aligned with Donald Trump, aligned with the America First agenda, didn't present themselves well to the American people because they're lunatics and they lost. But Donald Trump can't take responsibility for anything. And so somebody else had to get thrown under the bus as the result of that. What we saw on that debate stage was not the fault of his advisors, was not the fault of anybody on his team, was not the fault of anybody but Donald Trump. He cannot take responsibility, which makes it especially ironic that he's running to represent the party of personal responsibility. Here's the thing. It can never be Trump's fault. If we've learned anything over the last 8 or 9 years, it's that everyone else is to blame and Donald Trump is perfect. And so now, rather than simply acknowledge objective reality and recognize that Trump lost the debate because he is incompetent and impulsive, the new talking point is that he was poorly prepared and ill-served by his advisors. As if Donald Trump would ever actually listen to the counsel of an advisor and not simply descend into exactly the kind of meltdown that is as predictable as the sun rising in the morning. The notion that someone else is to blame for Trump's behavior is a joke. But of course, because the right-wing media ecosystem is designed to prop up Donald Trump, no matter what he does or says, he'll always have these clowns out here making excuses for his idiocy. Republicans love clutching their pearls about affirmative action. This is the ultimate form of it. Trump can fail and fail and fail, but they'll always make excuses for him. They'll always save him. Not because he deserves it, not because the right is some type of meritocracy, but because they've decided to create a little safety net for their man-child of a candidate. So look, while this panel on Piers Morgan was absurd, it's not a one-off. This is a perfect microcosm for the right-wing media ecosystem. Not only do they defend an abject moron, but remember, no one is forcing them to do this. They've made the conscious decision, the voluntary decision, to show up on air and defend a guy who took to national TV in front of 60 million people and did this.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
So if Michael Knowles and Tomi Lahren and Piers Morgan want to twist themselves into pretzels to defend that guy, by all means, I won't do anything to stand in their way.
So wrapping this up, Brian just lays it all out, and it's brutal. The idea that Trump's failure was somehow his advisor's fault is just laughable. This is the same guy who's been doing the exact same unhinged mess for years, but now that he completely bombed on stage, suddenly it's everyone else's fault? Give me a break. And Brian's not just calling out Trump. He's calling out the entire MAGA echo chamber that props him up no matter how ridiculous he gets. These folks love talking about personal responsibility, yet they bend over backwards to shield the one guy in their movement who's never taken any. At the end of the day, this panel wasn't just some weird one-off. It was a perfect little snapshot of how broken and sycophantic the right-wing media machine has just become. Because let's be real, no one made Michael Knowles, Tomi Lahren, or Piers defend this lunacy. They chose to show up and spin for a guy who stood up in front of millions and said migrants were eating people's pets. That's the play they're running with. And that's not bias, it's just delusion. And speaking of biases,
are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.